If you've ever tried to learn a new language, you've probably spent hours, and I mean hours, staring at long lists of words, just trying to cram them into your brain. But what if I told you that's one of the least effective ways to learn? Today, we're going to look at a much smarter, way more powerful way to think about words, not as these lonely little items, but as part of a huge connected system. So, let's start with a classic debate, the one every single language learner has. Grammar or vocabulary? Which one is more important? Should you be focusing on the rules that hold the language together, or the words that actually give it meaning? The answer to this question, well, it pretty much changes everything about how you should be learning. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. You see, grammar gives you structure, sure, but vocabulary gives you a voice. Without words, you are literally speechless. You could think of grammar as a bit of a luxury when you're just starting out. But vocabulary, that's an absolute necessity from day one. This analogy makes it crystal clear. Vocabulary is the hardware, all the essential bits and pieces of the language. Grammar is the software that makes it run smoothly. But here's the thing, you can't run software on a computer that has no parts, right? You absolutely need those building blocks first. Okay, so if we agree that vocabulary is the foundation, how do we build it the right way? Well, it's not about memorizing even longer lists. It's about understanding a much more sophisticated idea, this system that connects all the words together. To really see how a language's words are all interconnected, we need to upgrade our own vocabulary. The simple word vocabulary just doesn't really capture the whole picture. We need a better, more precise term. And that term is lexis. And no, not the car. In the world of linguistics, lexis refers to the entire vocabulary system of a language. It's not just a list of words. It's this amazing web of relationships, how words are formed, how they're grouped together, and how they partner up. It's kind of like the hidden architecture behind all the words we use every day. And you've probably seen its family members around without even realizing it. That root lex pops up everywhere in language studies. For example, a lexical error isn't a grammar mistake. It's an error in your word choice. And that just goes to show you how central this whole concept really is. Okay, so let's see how this concept of lexis really changes the game. Because once you start seeing vocabulary as a system, that old method of memorizing words one by one starts to look, well, incredibly inefficient and honestly just unnatural. So here's the difference in a nutshell. The old way treats words like these isolated little islands. But in reality, words have partners. They have neighbors they hang out with all the time. You don't just learn do, you learn the whole chunk do research. You absorb take a photograph as a single unit. This is the heart of what we call the lexical approach. And why is this so much better? Well, for starters, your brain finds it way easier to just grab a ready-made chunk than to try and build a sentence from scratch every single time. Second, the meaning is already baked right in. And maybe most importantly, this is your fast track to fluency because you stop translating in your head and you start speaking in natural, flowing phrases. Okay, so we know we should be learning in chunks, but what do these chunks actually look like? In this next section, we're going to break down the different categories that make up this whole system of lexis. The system of lexis is built from all these different kinds of connections. You've got words that are linked by their form, words linked by their topic, words that are basically best friends and always show up together, and even set phrases. Let's break down a few of the most important types right now. First up, a word family. It's exactly what it sounds like, a group of words that all share the same DNA, the same root. So if you learn the root word act, you suddenly have a key that unlocks this whole family of related words like actor, action, and activate. It's just a super efficient way to expand your vocabulary. A lexical set, on the other hand, groups words together by a shared theme. So if your topic is money, you learn words like earning, spend, and expensive all at the same time. This is so powerful because you're learning words in the exact context where you're going to need to use them. Now, this one is a huge deal. Collocations are word partnerships that just sound right to a native speaker. We say do research, we don't say make research. We take a photograph, not do a photograph. These little partnerships are often non-negotiable, and learning them is absolutely key to sounding natural. Okay, time for a little challenge. Take a look at this short text. Based on what we've just covered, can you spot any lexical sets or expressions in there? Think about the themes and any phrases that seem to be working together as a single unit. And here is the breakdown. You can clearly spot a lexical set for university and another one for money. And did you notice that semi-fixed expression, I'm going to? That acts as a ready-made template for talking about future plans. This just shows you how these systems are layered everywhere in natural language, working just underneath the surface. So we've gone through the theory, but let's boil it all down. Why is this shift from thinking about vocabulary to thinking about lexis so important? What does it actually mean for how you should be learning or teaching a language? The key takeaway is really this. First, stop learning words from isolated lists and start learning them in context. Second, focus on the chunks, those phrases and partnerships that native speakers use without even thinking. When you do this, your learning becomes more fluent because the language is already assembled for you. And finally, you become a much more efficient learner because every new word you learn brings its entire network of connections with it. This single shift in perspective changes the entire game. And that brings us to the end. Just remember, words aren't individual bricks. They're part of this intricate, interconnected system. Now that you can see the system behind the words, the real question is, how will you change the way you learn?